Welcome to Lawyers Who Learn, where we explore how attorneys' engagement and lifelong learning fuels their growth. Join us to uncover these journeys and gain insights for your legal career.
Amy, welcome to Lawyers Who Learn. I'm excited to dive deep into your story and have some fun. You ready?
Yes, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So from your day-to-day job, I would say, is you run IOLTA Consulting, and it's
Yes.
a very niche area of law that you started with a master's in accounting, started with general practice, and slowly but surely ended up focusing on this area of essentially these are trust accounts that you hold for your clients where you can't touch the money. And you found that more often than not, there's a lot of mistakes attorneys make here. And I guess you found there was enough business to do this full time. Just give us a quick understanding of how you ended up with that. And then we'll dive into your story a little bit more.
Yeah, if you had told me this is where my career was going when I was in school, I would have been shocked. I just kind of fell into it in that one of my first clients at a CPA firm started working with was a lawyer and very serious about her trust account, did everything right. And then she got audited. Remember if I told you the story, but the auditor's name was Bruno. So I'm a young professional just out of school, getting ready to go through my first audit, trust audit. And the guy's name was Bruno, and he lived up to his name like he was broad-shouldered big guy. But he was super nice. But we went through the audit and we didn't pass. And I was shocked. I thought I had everything in a row. And when Bruno sat down with me and said, "You're looking at this like an accountant, the bar, not accountants." And he walked me step by step through what he wanted to see. And that was a pivotal moment in my career. Like, I was like, oh, this is way different than I thought it was. I kind of had to shift my thinking from an accountant to, you know, kind of in a lawyer bar range. And so then I just got really interested in it. And I took on more and more law clients, again, helping them with all general accounting. And then, like you said, after years and years of doing this, there were so many excellent accountants and bookkeepers. There's practically no one who's specializing in this area. And most accountants and bookkeepers aren't trained in this area, so they don't know all the nuances, and every single state is different. So I decided to specialize in it, and I absolutely love doing it. As nerdy as that is, I love doing it.
And do you focus on every state?
I don't have clients in every state yet, but
Okay.
I do know the rules for every state. I
Yeah.
have this whole big spreadsheet of everything.
And are you a solo practitioner?
So I'm not a lawyer.
Oh, right,
I'm
you're not
just
a
an
lawyer. I knew that.
accountant.
I knew that.
Yes.
Are you because okay, so got it. All right. So you were did you have you had a general accounting agency before
CPA firm
general
I worked for, yeah.
you worked for in doing taxes, doing what before this?
Yes, I did taxes was the area I specialized in, but I did accounting, all the accounting, like the CPA firm I worked for, you did stuff from the beginning to the end. The only thing the partners did was they reviewed everything and signed off at the end.
Got it. And so
But
at this
yes.
firm, you started handling some of these IOLTA
Mhm.
account situations. And there was a moment where you decided to take the leap of faith and start your own practice, consultancy, just to focus on that.
Yeah.
What year was that?
It's been kind of a slow transition. I would say I started off on my own, taking on law firms probably in, 2007. So I stopped working for that CPA firm and just started taking on, I guess, like an independent contractor, taking on lots of different law firms and working for different CPA firms at that point too. So,
In 2007, and
mhm.
then but when and you were just so you've been only focused on IOLTA accounts since 2007?
No, at that
Okay,
point, I was still doing all general accounting
got it.
for the law firms I was working for. Probably just in the past 2 to 3 years, I've just started slowly moving away from, I mean, when you have lots of like bookkeeping clients or accounting clients, they don't just want you to drop them.
Right.
So
Sure.
I've been slowly moving away, and I actually have one left who they really love me, and so they're refusing to let me go. But other than that, that's the only
Okay.
accounting client I have.
And we'll circle back to that in a second. And I know, and I like I told you before we started filming, I watched a great podcast you did with a lawyerist about
Mhm.
taking us through exactly where attorneys make mistakes. One of them
Yes.
being, which is if they're off, let's say by a couple dollars, they just make an entry to fix that couple dollars versus actually figuring out
Yes.
where the problem is. Of course, that
Which
makes
comes back
sense.
to the accounting mindset. Like as an accountant, you're taught to be efficient and cost efficient so that you're not costing your client money. So if you're off by a few pennies as an accountant, it's not worth your time to go find them.
Yeah,
So you just adjust it. You cannot do that in the
yeah.
trust accounting world.
Totally
Mm-mm.
makes sense. And again, like I said, you thoroughly kind of went through that and I totally learned a lot. Let's take a step back for a second. Since you is there a question and have you done podcasts or you talk to clients or friends where people they always ask you those same questions about, where do attorneys mess up? What are some of the challenges? What are questions that you're not or a question you're not asked about your learning and growth journey and how you ended up where you are that you wish you could talk about more when it's like, okay, this is how I learned to grow and support attorneys in this key area in my life. Is there anything that comes to mind when I bring that up?
Mostly my failures. Like the very first audit I did with Bruno that I failed, I mean, I was genuinely shocked that we failed. And I think that was a huge learning experience for me. And then since, I mean, over the years, I've been through other audits and we've had little, maybe not failed, but there have been little things where the auditor has said, you're not doing this the way we want you to do it. And one thing I've learned from that experience is that, every state has a trust handbook, but the trust handbook can't cover every single possible situation that could happen. So when you get audited, the bar auditor is going to come in, look at things, and they're going to say, "Oh, you handled this incorrectly." But there's no place you can go back to the trust handbook and go, "Oh, I see where I didn't." It's not in there. It's just the mindset of the bar and how they want to see things. So I would say the biggest way I've learned is just from making failures and having to ask lots of questions. I love asking questions. One of the audits, I got the uh, business card of the head of the audit department, and I'm sure he hates that she gave me her business card because literally I call her or email her all the time and ask questions, and I do the same for all the states. Like I have different connections here or there. You just have to ask lots and lots of questions.
What have you learned from the attorneys who've been your clients over the years about, I don't know, w- the state of where how attorneys handle IOLTA accounts and just sort of where it fits into their I don't know, what failures have you seen that they've been making over the years? Not necessarily I mean, I know we can kind of go through some of the things that we just mentioned, but like, I don't know, when attorney take me through what it's like when an attorney reaches out to you. Like, are they in a state of panic? Like, how does it happen? Are these audits are they regularly happening to everybody? Are they random? Like, what is the typical sort of scenario like?
I would say most lawyers, this is not something they want to do. This is not, they did not start practicing law to have to take care of a trust account and do accounting work. So I think for most lawyers, they're really frustrated by the fact that this has been put on their shoulders and it's not part of what they love and enjoy
Are they
doing.
random audits? Is that how it works?
The most audits are random audits. Some audits are not. You can get an audit can get triggered if you've had a complaint, or I know in North Carolina, lawyers have an obligation that if they even think or know that there's another lawyer who has some issues with their trust account, they are obligated to report that to the bar, so that could trigger an audit. And not all states have random audits, but most of the audits I've been through have been random audits.
Okay. All right. So you get reached out, attorney finds you through Google, I would assume, or through referral.
Usually through referrals or
Okay.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay. And what have you found is usually is it 9 out of 10 times they're totally fine? nothing needs to change, or when you do it, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to prepare them for that audit?
I have I've been doing this for 20 years, over 20 years, and I have not walked into a single law firm where they were doing everything right. Not a single one. Even the ones that
That's
really
crazy.
just thought they had all their ducks in a row. And I did a conference recently, and I used a quote from the head of the audit department here in North Carolina. When she was a field auditor, she audited over 2,000 law firms during her time, and she said 99% of them did not pass the audits. 99% were not in full compliance.
Which is well, certainly it's not something you're taught in law school, and it's something, again, as attorneys, we run away from numbers and accounting. But what about like products? And I know there's products that exist that are specialized for these IOLTA accounts, and there's software that specializes in that. Even using products like that, they're still not doing things right usually, or this.
So the products tend to only be focused on the three-way reconciliation, sometimes the quarterly reviews. There's non-financial compliance components, like some states require CLEs, most states require you have your bank directive, which is a big one law firms don't usually have.
Your bank
Um,
what?
your bank directive. So when you open up your trust account, you sign a non-sufficient funds bank directive, giving your bank permission to notify the bar if your trust account goes below zero. You
Got it.
sign it, the bank signs it, and you have it on. But most law firms don't keep that. And if you get audited, the auditor wants to see that.
Got it. So just taking a step back, let me
Yeah.
ask you on this area from the actual three-way reconciliation and the numbers perspective, are most or 9 out of 10, or do you see a lot of firms that are fine there? Like they're doing that okay?
Yeah, I would say, let me see. I would say about 60 to 70% of firms are fine there, but you still can't rely on the software. There is some great software out there, but I actually am working with two clients right now who've been using the same software that is very specific to trust accounting. Um, and both of them, there were some errors made years ago, and now we're having to fix them because the program doesn't catch errors, it just runs the numbers. And as long as the numbers look fine and everything comes out with no negatives, it's not going to catch little things here or there. So there's one firm that's going through that. And then another firm, the program was pulling in numbers. I don't know where I'm still investigating how the program was pulling in numbers, but it wasn't pulling in the numbers in the right place. And so none of her three-way reconciliations have been done correctly for 2 years, and she was specifically using this program just designed to do three-way reconciliations.
What
So
percentage? No, go ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to say, you can have the best software to help you do this, but if it's still not set up properly or being watched, it's going to make mistakes. These softwares can't catch problems like negative necessarily amounts in individual ledger cards or ledgers, or I mean, there's a whole list of things the software can't catch. It's looking for numbers. It's not necessarily looking for little nuanced problems.
What's the most common type of IOLTA accounts that attorneys have for their clients? Like
What do you mean? What type?
like personal injury settlements, like what's the money that's in there? What are they holding the trust the funny like what is the again, I'm not a practicing attorney. I don't know if it's estate planning or some other areas. Like where are these?
Most attorneys have money in trust accounts called retainers, except usually criminal doesn't. Automobile, like DWIs and things like that don't. But family law, um, personal
This is for
injury,
retainers mostly.
retainers, yep. Estate planning, real estate attorneys are, they have a lot of money going through their trust accounts very quickly. Like most firms have money coming in and going out pretty slowly. Real estate attorneys have it coming in and going out really quickly, and so there's a higher risk of errors in that, and especially with all the wire fraud that's going on right now, all sorts of issues with that.
No, that is a great point because it's probably the most amount of money many people spend on any one given transaction. You give it to the lawyer, or at least the deposit to the lawyer, and they hold on to it for a long time. That's probably where fraud or mistakes can happen. is that where is if you were to say the top 3 areas, is real estate number 1 in terms of where you if you look industry wide where there are errors and mistakes or fraud that happens?
Definitely fraud is most prevalent in real estate. As far as errors go, I don't feel like it's specific to necessarily one kind of practice of law. Um, I feel like there are similar errors across all practices of law, but I do believe that real estate has many transactions going through, and they're such large transactions. Like, I have worked with law firms recently who have had all sorts of fraud coming through, but usually, couple $100 or a couple $1,000. Real estate, we're talking, if a fraud happens, it's usually hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands of dollars,
I
much
is
more
that
significant.
I mean, have you ever had someone come to you where they're audited and you look through everything and they actually don't even have an IOLTA account, they just have everything's in their bank account? They have a separate checking account that's not really a trust?
I have not had that because people who come to me know,
Okay.
I guess, enough to do that, but I've heard lots of stories of people who do not have an IOLTA account.
What makes something qualify as an IOLTA account? Like, does the
It is a
attorney
very specific account set up at a bank, and the bank has to have it set up with the bar. So not all banks have IOLTA accounts,
Gotcha.
but it is a very specific bank account that is connected with the bar. Um, And usually every state has a list of banks that the bar will give you that shows you which banks you can use. And I'll say not all banks are created equal when it comes to handling your IELTS account. And in my experience, the bigger the bank, the um, worse they are at handling your IELTS account because they have to, they're working across the whole United States and every single state is different. So, like in North Carolina, you can only have 6 check images per page on your bank statement. And so, like the big banks, they don't care that North Carolina has this requirement, so they don't do it. But the little banks here in North Carolina, they all meet that requirement. So it gets tricky.
I said to you, I don't want to talk about the details of IOLTA accounts, and here I am asking all these questions because I'm actually interested because it is so not all banks are created equal, um, and I understand that. But is there like is it an actual because the attorneys still have control over the account? Is there any safeguards in a IOLTA account that protects the client, or is it just more that you're registering it with the ABA? Like, what makes it safer?
So what makes it safer is the regulations they put on it to protect the client. So that's why they have the random audits because they want to look through the IELTS accounts and make sure you are following all the regulations that have been put on top of this account to protect the client. And so if you're not following all these regulations, then that's when they can dig deeper and be like, okay, why are you not following these regulations? I'll give you a story of an example. So a client a while back, your staff needs to be trained on IELTS as well, not just, the partners or the accountants who are working on it. The staff member deposited trust funds into the operating account and she didn't think anything about it. She was like, oh, and they didn't even catch it for months. So the money is sitting in the operating account. And then they did catch it and they're like, oh, this was a legitimate mistake. And they move it to the trust account and they make notes about what happened. Then they move on. Months down the road, they get randomly audited. The auditor comes in and sees this. It unfortunately corresponds with the time that the law firm was struggling with cash flow. So they are now accused of taking that money, putting it into their operating account, and using it to help them get through a few months of cash flow issues before
Yeah.
putting it back in the trust. And they legitimately did not mean to do that. But that's what these regulations and these random audits are meant to find and stop is things like that. The law firm taking the money and using it for their own purposes when it's not their money.
Sure. But again, unless there's a random audit, there's no mechanism to prevent that from happening by just being an IOLTA account, correct?
If your clients complain, that can trigger it. Like, I don't know if you've been watching the Thomas Girardi. He's that huge lawyer that did multi-million-dollar cases, and they caught him because they randomly audited. He had lots of clients complaining, and so they audited. I guess it wasn't random. They audited his trust account, and he had stolen billions of dollars from his clients,
With the
and now he's
B. With
spending.
the B.
I think so, yeah, because he's the one who did the Aaron Brockovich, water case, and he took on these huge high-profile cases. So now he is spending 7 years in prison for stealing client money. So prison is an extreme,
Yeah.
like, most people don't go to prison, but I think the frustrating thing to me is that lots of lawyers do face different kinds of consequences, like losing their license or being suspended or different things like that for stuff that they legitimately didn't mean to do wrong. They weren't trying to be fraudulent. They just didn't know they weren't supposed to be doing A, B, or C, and they did them, and then they got audited, and then they get in trouble.
Got it. Yeah. No, and look, I mean, there's many things that are not the sexy part of being a lawyer, and having and managing an IOLTA account is one of them, but doing it right is important, and I'm sure causes a lot of attorney
Yes.
stress. But it seems like if you put the money in the account and only touch it when you're supposed to, it should be okay. Why what are some reasons why, and I know there's probably a variety, but why it would be off by a small amount? Like what?
Bank errors. Banks cash checks for the wrong amount all the time, so that
Really?
happens.
Just because
Uh-huh.
they read it the check wrong.
Mhm. Yeah, like, it's usually just off by a couple cents, and it's usually, like, 2 numbers are transposed
Yeah.
or something like that, or maybe it was had 50 cents at the end, and the bank just, didn't do the 50 cents. They just did the round cash amount or whatever. So banks make errors all the time. People make errors. So, I mean, I made errors over the years where I moved the wrong amount of money out of the trust account for a client, because I was looking at something else, or um, oftentimes, in the middle, one of the errors I talk about during conferences is, let's say you're moving money and you record it in your general ledger or whatever you're using for your bookkeeping, but then you get distracted and you don't record it on a client ledger account. And then a month goes by and you do billing again and you move money out of that client ledger and you keep doing that. And then eventually you find that error, but at that point, you've already moved way more money out of their account because for several months you didn't realize you had missed recording this one transaction, and it just snowballs
Yeah.
into being just a recording error, into now it's going to cost your firm thousands of dollars because of the snowball effect.
It I mean, that sounds like really painful to find that error on that, and so do you literally have to go through and, "Okay, let me look at all the checks, let me find," like, it's sort of like sometimes finding a needle in a haystack to figure out
So
why.
that's why you're required to do the three-way reconciliation. Like, when I'm using this example, I say if your accountant is doing your normal reconciliation, which is your bank account or your bank statement and your general ledger, they're not going to catch this error I just talked about. You have to do the three-way. It's your bank statement, your general ledger, and then your client ledgers. And if
Got it.
you are doing that every month, you will catch these kinds of errors.
And normally there's only when you do reconciliation, it's a two-way?
Normal accounting reconciliation is just two ways. It's just your bank statement and your general ledger, and the difference between them is outstanding stuff, like outstanding checks,
Got it.
outstanding deposits.
And the
So yeah.
third thing is the client ledger, you're
Mhm.
saying? Third thing?
Yeah, and that's the one that people mess up on the most, and your accountant usually isn't reconciling that.
Do you suggest or provide, or is there more, is this needed more often, where people hire you or someone like you to help them before they're audited to make sure they're all set up correctly? Like, is there a how does that
Yes.
happen in the world of IOTA accounts?
Yes, so I much prefer people to come and find someone like me right as they're getting started opening a law firm, because then, I mean, there's trust accounting is from beginning to end. There's a certain way to open a trust account and get it set up correctly. And at the end, when you're closing your law firm, there's a certain way you're supposed to close it down. But if you get it set up correctly and have someone managing it from the get-go, you're not going to have problems. It's not hard stuff. It's just staying on top of it. But I also come into law firms and I'll do a mini audit where I'll go
Yeah.
back and look at like 3 or 6 months worth of trust stuff to make sure that they're following all the compliance rules, they're doing all the recording correctly, they have all their documents in order, and then if there are issues, I will go back and find the issues and fix them. I've gone back as far as 5 or 6 years sometimes with law firms to go back to find where the error started. And that's the problem. It's cumulative. So you have to go back and find it, and then you have to fix it going forward.
And back to my first question, but not
Yeah.
saying it's a so are you the only person in your firm, or do you have other people who do these audits as well?
I have one other person who works with me.
Okay.
She doesn't do the audits. She
Okay.
just helps me with some
Supports
of
you.
the yeah.
So if you had to think about where you are at today, right? How full is your calendar? How many more clients can you take on? And what does 5 years from now look like for you? Like, do you see yourself doing the exact same thing? Is there a vision of how you want to expand or grow this? Have you thought about that? Just would love to better understand sort of what is the next step for you?
Yes, I do have capacity for a lot more clients. One thing to keep in mind is once you get someone cleaned up, the month to month work is not a lot. So it's the cleanup that's kind of project based that takes a lot of time. So I have a lot more capacity for clients, but I do have a great vision. I do want to grow. I want to take on more people. I want to my vision is to take on more people, train them, and then I love traveling, I love speaking, I love being at conferences, I love doing podcasts, I love educating people on, trust accounting, and this is not difficult stuff. I hate people getting in trouble for it when it's so easy to fix. So I do want to grow 5 years down the road. Like I even already have planned out the people I want to hire eventually. I've already talked to them like when I can, I want to pull you on my team. So I do want to grow.
And hire them to do audits or hire them to support you?
Some of them are hired to do audits, some of them are hired to manage the office or interact with clients because these are their very specific skills that they are great at.
First of all, I love that you had an answer to this question, and I love the vision. So, is this a 5-year vision, a 10-year vision? Like, where do you see? Let's go 5 years. So let's go a little less than 5 years. It's 2030. You wake up. Are you your day to day? Are you traveling and doing conferences pretty much most of the time? Other people are doing all the audits, or are you still doing like? What would be your ideal sort of
My
dream?
ideal would be to be traveling and either doing traveling to do audits or traveling to speak or different things like that, and then having a team all over the United States that is supporting me and doing backup work. And hopefully at some point, like the person who's working with me right now, she's incredibly smart. And I think that once she gets some stuff under her belt and I can train her, she'll be able to do everything that I can do. So to train a team to be able to provide these services across the United States.
How big is the competition where firms or organizations do specifically only what you do? Like they only do
Mm,
it.
I only know of one other person who just does what I do. I know of some accounting firms who offer some of what I do, but they don't come in and do audits. They don't cover, or they don't even know a lot of the non-financial aspects. Um, I really don't know anyone who just does trust accounting, which just blows my mind.
It
I'm
it is
like,
it
this
is
is a great
fascinating.
area.
No, and you honestly, you do a really good job of making it. And you do speak. You have good energy, and I could. Do you speak a lot now?
I don't, I'm just starting to. So
Okay.
I've been on a few
Good.
podcasts. I have a few, I've done a few CLEs, and conferences, and I have more coming up.
Well,
Yeah.
here's my offer to you. I know you're not an attorney. I will gladly do a CLE with you on Law Line. I'm an attorney. I will do a. We could do it together because you make IOLTA accounts seem interesting. Seriously, I'm like, oh yeah, this is interesting. So that's one. Two, do you have like a keynote that you've given or that you want to give? And what would it take me? What it would look like to make it like engaging and interesting? Like what would be the story you
I'm
would tell
just
people?
working on that. There's a guy who he's a general counselor for lawyers, and he works with people who get in trouble with IOLTA, and he tells stories. I've seen his presentation, and he is jaw-dropping hilarious. It is so much fun to watch him talk about all these lawyers getting in trouble. I want to add aspects that make my presentations more interesting. I've given a presentation on what happens if you get audited to a room full of law firm owners?
Yeah.
And then my favorite presentation to give is Trust Accounting 101. I mean, it literally takes you through the step-by-step nuts and bolts of what you need to be doing to be in full compliance. So and I usually give that to new lawyers or even established lawyers who are starting their own firms. So I love doing that.
Is there like a monthly recurring business model here where it's a low fee each month that helps just sort of make sure an account is maintained and up to
Yep.
date?
I do subscriptions.
So what?
I
So
do a monthly subscription where you get all your monthly stuff done, and I make sure you're staying compliant. And then I help you make sure you stay on top of if you need to escheat something or not at the end of the year. And then that gives you access to me and my staff, because one of the things I want people to do is I want them to call and ask questions. It's so much easier to fix
yeah.
something at the get-go
What
than to
what
fix it
percentage
later.
what percentage of law firms have IOLTA accounts? Of small to mid-sized firms? Like,
Mid-sized firms, I would say all of them, especially if they're doing more than one area of law.
yeah.
Small firms, it's just specific to whatever, like if you're a family law firm, you're going to have an IOLTA account. If you're just doing criminal, you're probably not.
And are your fees fixed regardless of the size of the firm, or does it depend on?
It depends on the number of transactions going
Okay.
in and out of the IOLTA account and how many trust accounts you have. I have one client who has 3 trust accounts in 3 different states.
I don't know. Are you transparent with your pricing? I'm curious if you could share sort of what it is, or does that
I'm
depend?
still working out the ups and downs of it,
That's fair.
depending on area. So
All right.
prefer
I don't
not
want to
to.
hold you to it on air. All right. This is really interesting and helpful. Let's switch topics a little bit about your own learning and growth, or I should say your families. When we originally talked a while ago, we got to know each other. One of the things that intrigued me and always is interesting to me is families who do homeschooling. Can you take us a little bit through how you guys approach that, and how many kids you have, how long you've been doing that, and the why behind it? Because I don't know, I think there's so much to
Yeah.
learn from somebody who does this. All of us dealt with this at least short term during COVID, and many of us are happy to like give our kids back afterwards. So I would love to better understand sort of the learning growth journey here.
I think the caveat to that though is you were homeschooling and you were being dictated to what you had to teach.
Totally.
When you
Totally. It wasn't real
homeschool,
homeschooling. Yeah.
you get to determine that, which makes it way more fun and interesting. Um, I think the biggest thing that prompted us to homeschool was just we were surrounded by families who were doing it, and we were so impressed with just so many characteristics of the children. Like it was easy for them to interact with any ages, from little kids all the way up to adults. They asked such good questions and they weren't afraid to ask questions. And they got to experience things that kids who are in a normal school didn't get to. Like for my family, for example, my daughter got to spend a month in Costa Rica when I think she was 12, helping at a preschool teaching kids English. And I mean, what an amazing
Amazing.
experience for
Really
her.
amazing. So were they in regular, like, public school or private school ahead of time, or you started
No,
homeschooling from the beginning?
we started from the get go, just going ahead and homeschooling them. Um, and we just had a lot
How
of
many
fun.
kids do you how many kids?
So I now have 4 kids.
4 kids.
Yeah.
And can you share the range of ages to get a sense of
Yes.
who's still in
So
homeschooling?
yes. So I have an 18-year-old, and this is her senior year. I have a 16-year-old. Okay, the problem with homeschooling is you have to really think about what years they are. Okay, 16. I guess even a sophomore, junior. I don't know. Anyway,
Just
the
ages.
senior's easy. The senior's easy because
18,
I know it's
16.
her last year. Um, and then I have a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Awesome.
So
And
yeah.
who do you do the teaching? Like, how does
When you get into high school, it's really not so much me teaching as me just kind of overseeing. And my daughter, who's a senior, she's dual enrolled, so she's taking a lot of classes at a local community college, which has been
Yeah.
great. It's given her a lot of flexibility. That's the other thing is flexibility. She is highly musical and she got a job at a music school. So she can teach music on her own schedule without having and fit school around it without having to, be on a strict school schedule, which she really loves. So I love the flexibility of it and the ability to like
Okay.
when we were learning about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I understand high school being flexible, like the formative years when you're actually learning how to read and to write and math. That's of course there's a curriculum that's you got to get that
Hmm.
right.
Yep.
How did you learn how to do that?
There are, in fact, it's just overwhelming. There are so many different curriculums out there you can choose. I went with, oh, now I'm not gonna remember, Orton Gillingham. So it's a method that speech pathologists or speech people use to teach um, reading and writing. And so I specifically looked for that and I found a program called All About Reading that I did. Math, I wanted something very visual, so we did Math UC, and we've done that most of the way through. But there's you find different curriculums that fit your kid and how they love to learn and how you love to teach.
I love
And
that. I
yeah,
love
so it's
that.
very specific to them. And so you're not like trying to, bang a square peg into into a square hole. Like you're making it fit for them.
So right, did you who was doing the teaching? You like how did you split
Me?
it up? Yeah,
Yeah, but you have a curriculum you follow step
yeah.
by
Did
step,
you have to learn a
walks you
little
through
bit
things.
before you teach, or you just kind of like
Oh, let
learning
me
as you
tell you,
talk?
I have learned more homeschooling my kids than I ever did in
Yeah,
school.
yeah. And the one thing I wish I don't know, I would love to be able to experiment with this, but I think we're past the point. I have 18-year-old I have 16-year-old seniors who are turning 17 shortly, and then a 12-year-old who's in 7th grade. But I one of the things that as I talk to others who have homeschooled, their 40-hour week, whatever it was that you go to school, there's so much free time to not just because you can get things done much quicker than you could do in a school day at a normal school.
Oh,
And then they
yes.
have 25 hours free to focus on what they want to focus on, and do things like that. What how does that work out like in the real world when you get through
Yes,
something?
we would do, a couple hours of school and then we would go to the park or we'd go to the museum or the thing I loved is when we were learning things, when we were learning about D-Day, we went to the D-Day Memorial in Virginia, I think it is. And so we had learned all this history, and then we went and we walked through this museum, and they got to see up here, like they have a wall that is as high as the cliff was. You're just like looking at it like, wow, that's amazing. So they get to see these things and interact with them, and I think that makes them remember more of the history and um, so we would do a lot of physical things and go
And
places.
would you do that? I know with homeschooling, sometimes there's different you can meet other homeschoolers once a week or whatever. Do you ever do field trips with other groups, or is it usually on your own?
Sometimes we do field trips, but my family is very social. So we were always a part of, up until recently, we were always a part of two different co-ops. One was just a for fun co-op. I mean, it had over 500 people in it. And like your kids would take classes like cooking class or sewing class or acting class or like they offered all sorts of stuff, and then the other one was more academic, and your kids would come together and discuss things they were learning throughout the week, like book
Yeah.
they were reading the same books, or they were going over the same logic, schooling, or they were, talking about the same history, and they would come together and discuss it and debate.
You're I'm curious, your daughter who is a senior, what does she think about college?
So she had her first, English class, and so we did classical conversation, and in classical conversation, you read a book and you write a paper every 2 weeks. I mean, it's a full-blown paper, like, 5 to 8-page paper or something like that on a specific topic. And so she just finished her first semester of an English class, and, my son is still in CC,
Wait,
and so
she's
he
in
was writing
college?
papers.
She's in college now, or she's a
She's a
senior?
senior in high school, but
Okay.
she's taking
College level classes.
a freshman
Yeah.
English class. And so she was weeks in and they were still working on a paragraph. And my son was weeks in the class on conversation and he had already written like 2 or 3 papers. And he was like, this is not fair. And she was like, college is so easy.
So she's in a virtual college class? Is that what it is? Or just in
No, so she
person?
goes to campus. She
Oh,
goes to
wow.
our
Wow.
Wake Tech campus here, which she loves. I mean, I think she had the option of some virtual classes, but she really likes being in person.
Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
chose that.
I, one of the things that I would wonder homeschooling, it's very easy to be like, "Ah, I'm not going to do my homework tonight. This is too much." How did your kids get through the like, well, it's just my mom checking this. Like, I don't really need to get this done.
Yeah. And that can become an issue for sure. I think it helps being in co-ops because then they are surrounded by peers that are keeping them kind of accountable.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you have to be the bad, mean parent who, like,
Yeah.
oh, your video game time that you wanted to take.
Yeah. One of the challenges that, is the amount of homework our kids get. And I actually don't agree with the amount of homework they get. It's just like overwhelming because every teacher treats it like they're the only class that they have. At least that's what I hear
Yeah.
my kids say. And then they have
Yeah.
sports and track and activities and other things like that. And I don't know, just that's one thing. How is AI, if at all, being integrated now to w- homeschooling for your kids? Because
That is a very interesting topic right now. Um, and I think that different people are reacting to it differently. I am trying to you know, get my kids involved and to use it to help them brainstorm and think up of ideas, but not to use it to do the actual work. But I think it's a great tool for brainstorming and thinking through things and problem solving and even checking things like grammar as long as they're coming up with, the ideas and the words and um but in the homeschool community, it's very controversial as to whether letting kids use it or not because it can be so easy to just completely cheat with it.
yeah, yeah, it's interesting, and I'll move on from homeschooling after this. But it's like what I like about the concept of the homeschooling is focusing on the outcomes versus the actual, like, I have to do my homework and get a good grade. Because when you're just doing the outcomes and you're focused on like the experience and teaching in Costa Rica and doing different things, it be it, to me it becomes less important if they're using AI to quote unquote cheat, because you can argue I'm using AI to cheat in life right now. So it helps me edit
Yeah.
every single thing that I do. It helps me organize my
Yes.
thoughts. And so I would rather prepare them for what's happening in the future today versus create these artificial limitations. So like that's one thing if I put my money where my mouth was and try to create a school in some form, I think to do it. It's so much work and really hard and lots of challenges. So awesome. I think, is there anything that I didn't ask that would be
Well,
worth
I would just like
sharing?
to jump on that point you said about the outcomes. So right now, my two little ones are actually in a school, and they're in a classical conversation or a classical kind of school. And then the funny thing to me is how important attendance is. I'm like, are you just like as a homeschooler, attendance is just not the be all and end
Yeah.
all of the world. And then testing, like they just put a lot of pressure on tests. And we do tests here when I was homeschooling them, and I'm still homeschooling my older ones. But there's not a lot of pressure on that. I am interacting with them. I am seeing what they're learning. I know that they're getting things and they're
No.
thinking through things. That's more important to me than some grade they make on a test. So I really like how you kind of get talked about the outcome is more important than the process of are you in school enough days, are you doing well on all the tests and homework and all of that.
Well, just because you mentioned, I'm curious, are they not homeschooling anymore because of your bandwidth, because of their desires, or because somewhere in between?
um it's my bandwidth. um, so that I mentioned to you we were talking about my husband.
No, I don't remember. We're not.
Okay, he has epilepsy. He's had his
Okay.
whole life, and it has never affected us whatsoever until a few years ago. And then he started having major seizures, and he can no longer drive.
Oh,
And
no.
yeah, and
Wow.
so he can still work,
Yeah,
but
it's too scary to drive because it can happen at any moment, you're saying.
yeah, it can happen
So
at any moment. And it's cumulative in that the doctors have told us um, eventually his cognitive abilities will decline. And so I we decided at that point that I needed to work on building my business in anticipation of one day he's not going to be able to work. So we put the girls in school so that I could focus more on my business.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that's vulnerable to share. I appreciate that because everyone I talk to has something going on in their life that it's a good
Yeah.
lesson. Like, you know, and people are open to sharing it because we all want to talk about, our hardships and challenges. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure other people who hear this will relate to like something that's hard in their life that it's caused them to change
Yeah.
sort of what they want to do. And I hope, and I don't know a lot about the science behind epilepsy, but I and I know a lot of all the brain sort of situations is not easily solvable, but I know
Yeah.
hopefully they'll figure something. Look, AI is supposed to be speeding up a lot of, for science, the hope is wow, what it can do
Yes.
to figure things out. So that's I'm sure the hope that you're both having right now. And it's very scary to think that like, you don't know the timing of that in the future. I can't
Right.
imagine how you guys feel about, how you deal with that on a day-to-day basis or your kid. I don't know how I assume your kids understand that as well. It must be a lot to
They do, but I think on a day-to-day basis, it's not evident.
yeah.
Like he's not having seizures every day or things like that. So I think we're just living our lives and trying to prepare for the future as best we can. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love the vision that you set for the business. I love sort of what you're doing. You're providing a service that's really needed in the legal industry, and I love that you have a recurring model as well that I assume is easy and cost effective enough that you can sign up 100, 200, 300 firms over time and do their audits every so often, but have this there, it sort of helps and you can build the team to support it. So I see the vision and I like it. What about your personal learning, if you have any time, or over your course of your life, is there any books that have been impactful for you? Because I always find
Oh
like
wow.
a $15 book is the best ROI I've ever gotten in my life. And I don't know if there's any books that you have, because we do have an engine that we've created that we're going to be sharing, that we do share. We have 115 books in there now. Every guest recommendations into this searchable engine on lawyerswholearn.com.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love reading. I love reading just different time management books or self-help books, like Atomic Habits is one that just popped into my head.
Yeah.
I wish you had warned me about this question because I could have had a
You
list
know,
for it.
it's funny because I think because we had to reschedule with you a few times on the new surveys that people fill out. It's now on there. So, and I was looking on it and I didn't see it on here. So people now do have prep. I've learned my lesson. But sometimes people look at their phone and their Kindle or anything like that. But I'll take you off the hook right now. If anything comes to mind before we close, just blurt it out there. Atomic Habits, of course, has been said. It's a great book. I've read it as well. I love the stacking on habits that I'm already doing in the morning to do new habits. And then there's 400 other pages, I guess, that it talks about other things. Last topic I think is, keeping on you is, I know you mentioned you love to travel or you
Mhm.
used to travel a lot. Is there, can you take, obviously, I love to travel. I have a book that's coming out called 11 Suitcases about moving to Barcelona for 2 years. And it was really all about giving our kids the ability to see a whole new culture, to live in a new culture, and to experience life through travel versus staying put. And it's really transformed who we are as a family because our
I love that.
kids who are not afraid to travel are not afraid to do a lot of things in life because
Yes.
going to Costa Rica to teach as an example, or wanting to explore new places on your own or do other things like that and learning from other cultures. What are some is there any country or two that stands out that was in your list?
So I love traveling, but I haven't been able to travel a whole lot. So I
Fair
haven't
enough,
been to a
fair
lot
enough.
of countries. I've not even been to Europe.
Wow, okay. So, now look,
Travel around the United States quite a bit, and we
very
just
underrated though, like, United States is bigger than almost as big as all of Europe. and some of the best beautiful sites. So what about in the United States? That
So my family and I just took it's the first time we've done this. All six of us went, and we went to Alaska, Alaskan cruise just a few months ago. Best family
oh,
trip
yeah.
we have ever had. Alaska was amazing. We all had a great time. Just absolutely loved it. My husband and I frequently go up to New York. And we have some different trips planned this year across the United States, but I'm still working on the budget for traveling.
Where do you live again?
I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Ah, fantastic. Because I thought you mentioned Wake before.
Wake Tech.
Oh, because Wake Forest is
Yep,
there.
that's just north of me.
Yeah. So well, my daughter got into Wake Forest, so we will be heading. So maybe I will be visiting you at some point. In the
Yes, we'll have to
future.
grab some coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for taking the time, Amy, to connect deeper, to share your personal story, to share your professional story side. You know, or complete person. That's why I like to get the full, I guess 360 or whatever of who we are. And anybody who has stuck around and is an attorney or in legal tech entrepreneur or just an individual will have gotten value from hearing all the things that you've shared today. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yep. And I'll see you soon in North Carolina, I'm sure, or New York. Come visit me.
Yes.
All right. Thanks.